You remember like 6 months ago, we were saying that like 30 degrees and sunshine would be so great. It'd be so great to have the heat. Now that we have it, what do you think about that, Dave? You like
we
the 30
started
degrees
recording?
now?
I thought you were just like continuing your moan.
No, I'm just sweating. KrakCast World Headquarters is like 50 degrees now.
Always greatly cheers me that a Floridian like yourself suffers.
People always think because I'm from Florida, I should have some immunity to heat or something like that. It doesn't work that way at all. But anyway, it's hot, seriously hot. I'm hot. Josh is hot. Dave is hot. Dr. Mike is hot.
I'm a little more modest than you are. Okay.
Okay. Anyway, welcome back to the news, everybody. As usual, lots and lots to talk about. Lots of subjects this week. We're going to start out with some news that Jacek Majchrowski, Krakow's mayor since 1837, is going to have a little bit of help in the form of a night mayor. What's that all about, guys?
Well, basically, they want to introduce a new office or a new official who will deal with all the businesses and the problems dealing with Krakow's nightlife. So, noise pollution, clubs, bars, drinking, tourism. It's not exactly a mayor that, when Majchrowski goes home, this guy shows up and takes, it's like, it's his shift. No, it's basically will be a new department, a new office that will deal with all those issues that have to do with.
Kind of like law enforcement kind of things?
No, it's not just the
public order.
It's basically a new vice mayor of nighttime stuff. So basically nightlife in Krakow, noise complaints, drinking, tourism, bars and clubs.
Doesn't leave much left for Majchrowski to deal with, actually.
I'm sure he's happy about that. He doesn't do much to begin with, but anyway. Apparently, this is kind of a trend in cities around the world, kind of touristy cities, right?
Yeah, Amsterdam, Tokyo, New York has its own nightmare, John, your favourite city in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just a trendy kind of label, isn't it? I'm always against creating a new office. I mean, why can't the regular mayor's office do whatever coordinating needs to be done? I mean, JM's got his finger on the pulse since 2002. He knows every stop. But is this just a way of him halving his workload, Mikey? Anything that happens after nightfall is now not on my plate?
I think that's part of it. Plus, also, it makes it sound like he's doing something. Like, a lot of people are complaining about these problems. I'll create this new blue ribbon commission. I'll take care of it. And hire a few more people. And problem solved. Yeah, exactly.
This is going to be an appointed position, not an elected position, surely. I can imagine.
Basically, it's not even a real mayor. It's just a new department. It might not even be one person. It might be, somebody else coming in. It'll be just like the office of the nightmare. So it'll be all these issues.
The nightmare.
Welcome to my nightmare.
The nightmare.
Night court.
Surely the kind of things that the office is going to take care of, like the things that you listed, surely somebody does that now, right? So
exactly, yeah, but they're just going to give it to like a new department, hire a few more people, and now all these people that complain about some issues that are associated with nighttime issues will have somebody else they can send their angry letters to.
Could this be kind of framed as Majchrowski delegating a lot of his basic responsibilities to somebody else while dressing it up as something like a new initiative that people should be grateful for?
Look, they're doing it in Amsterdam. Give me a break. I don't want to know anything about any of this noise pollution and crime you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, look, it's been the article I read is constantly referencing the push and pull between business owners and residents. The issue of noise in the evening from drunk tourists. Let's be real about it. And it's like, this is an issue that can't be solved.
That's another reason why Majchrowski wants
there are no solutions
to it to somebody else. It's like, go talk to this guy about that. I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. So he doesn't have to choose sides or actually make any decisions or solve any problems. He can just point to that door down the hallway.
Hey, speaking of nighttime and drunk people, and sorry to spring this on you, but this just popped into my head. What happened to the rule about banning alcohol sales in Kazimierz in the center of town at night? What happened to that?
It got introduced, and then there was an injunction saying that it's unlawful.
Yeah, it became a legal battle.
Gray area right now, so who knows what's going on with that?
You know what? Ban it all you want. It wouldn't stop anything. It's just a little plaster on it. It's as you say, it's a problem that's pretty much impossible to solve. Krakow's a party town. It's a big, it's not a capital city, but it's a great town. Everyone's partying.
Speaking of drinking, speaking of tourists, you think of tourists and drinking in Kazimierz, you think of Plac Nowy. Plac Nowy in the news this week as well because of some trees that have to go. Actually, guys, tell us about the problem with the trees.
Well, the city just put up some trees in boxes and pots to change
planter. I would call it
planter.
Yes.
I'm not all that green. They're trees. Okay. The main reason for this was that they've decided to change the way traffic flow should work there. The city, the traffic wardens, whatever, and but while the department of the city of the province that deals with protecting the conserving the look of the city says like, no, this isn't in line with the way the city is supposed to look. Like get rid of these trees. The funny thing is, so what? The traffic wardens who then just put up like regular stop signs and signage and concrete walls instead. The Conservator is saying that they're trying to protect the image of the city, which ties into the fact that now Kazimierz is also some people want Kazimierz to apply for the same kind of cultural park heritage status as the Old Town has. But what's different, the Old Town did that to get rid of advertisements and all the tacky stuff hanging around to make the city look nicer. While here in Kazimierz, they want to introduce that to actually cut down on the amount of cafes and restaurants and bars and protect, say, like local businesses and craftsmen and stuff like that. Keep the what they call the old feel of the district surviving into the future.
I find it interesting that
get a few cobblers back into business.
Exactly.
it's interesting that Kazimierz has this Zielona Strefa, this green zone designation for electric cars, and that's okay, but they can't have actual green in the form of trees. That's really weird.
It's another half measure. They should just go all in and pedestrianise Plac Nowy completely and make people park around the corner and let deliveries in at certain times. Josh, how do these? You're a regular user of Plac Nowy. You go to sit there in the sun, do your crossword, have a beer all the time. How has it affected your mood, this new greenery?
Oh, it's lifted it by several clear notches, actually. Very, very, very cheerful about this.
You're going to be depressed when they're gone?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, I look at them and I see, and I can imagine a future Plac Nowy where the pavements are double the width, where there's a setup that a lot of the cafes can actually have major kind of external terraces.
We're talking like, sorry, Josh.
Hold on a second. That's a wonderful idea. Let's continue with this.
And then you'd have trees growing there, and there would be room for one vehicle. Width of one vehicle, then you'd have a time for deliveries allowed up until 10 a.m. like you do in the Rinnek. Otherwise, cars not allowed in there at all, and very, very nice.
Why wasn't that done years ago? Because let's be honest, Plac Nowy is a mess. Yeah. Visually, organizationally, it's a mess. But
again, behind operation, Josh.
I think somebody likes it that way, though. I mean, I can't think of another reason why it hasn't been changed already.
Well, I was talking with the KrakCast's good friend Jonathan Ornstein a few days ago about all of this, and we were agreed that the market stalls, those corrugated iron monstrosities.
Absolutely. I'm only always saying that to you. They're just an eyesore. Like the whole middle area is a complete waste.
Yeah, they're not charming. They're just ugly. Yeah.
Just turn it all into a nice little garden, maybe. With some benches and some. What do you call them? What do you call the gazebos? Does anyone know what a gazebo actually is?
It's a wall-less kind of structure that covers you.
Yeah, well, they're kind of nice.
Going back to the trees, isn't it like 5 or 6 trees? It's not like a forest or anything. It's just a handful.
They're temporary. You can move them at any moment.
Yeah, they're in pots. You can pick them up. Well, no, not very easily. You might be able to.
They're like a square meter in size.
This reminds me of something that we talked about last year on the show. Remember during the renovations of Sławkowska Street in the center of town, the original plan was to have a few trees lining one side of the street, but the Conservator struck it down, saying that they couldn't do this because there's no historical precedent for having trees on Sławkowska.
You are obsessed with this.
What?
Here it comes. There was loads of trees on the Rennick Rand.
Well, it is. Because the justification was we can't have trees on Sławkowska because there weren't trees in the past.
No, I agree.
And I think that's largely the justification for what's going on in Plac Nowy. But if you look at lots of photographs of the Rinnek from the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century, there were trees everywhere. So if the idea is to keep it the way it was some time ago, why don't we have trees all over the Rinnek?
Sławkowska is fully kind of pedestrianised apart from the taxis crossing, and I think it'd look really nice because it does widen out that street as you go up it. I'm agree with you, John. It was a missed opportunity there.
I mean, I think trees should be basically everywhere. They don't take away anything unless we're talking about an airport runway. Trees are fine, I think.
Go trees.
Let's move on to something. This story, I don't even know where to start. This story is just full of comic potential. Believe it or not, Krakow actually won the right to stage a major international sporting event in 2023, 4 years from now. The European Games, sometimes called the European Olympics or European Olympics. Now, first of all, yes, there is such a thing as the European Olympics. It was just created. It's basically a made-for-television. It's programming, basically. The first one was held just 4 years ago in 2015 in Baku in Azerbaijan.
Baku.
This year, it's in Minsk, in Belarus, and apparently Krakow has won the right to host it in 2023. which is funny because a lot of people in the local government, well, they're just as surprised as you are to learn about this. They had no idea. Dr. Mike, talk us through what we know so far about this.
It's actually quite hilarious because nobody can really pin down who sent in the application to the International Olympic Committee. It was definitely Poland's Olympic Committee was kind of like suggesting the idea, and apparently Majchrowski and Krakow and Małopolska said, like, that sounds interesting. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. And then all of a sudden, it gets called that Krakow is the only city candidating, and they have the application. It's like, but who sent it in? But Majchrowski might be twisting the truth a little bit here because he was definitely in Rome about 2 months ago at a meeting concerning the European Olympics, and Rome is the head of the European Olympic Committee. He says like nothing firm was signed, no official decisions were made, but Krakow is the only city being even considered.
Let me read something from the official website of the organization. It's eurolympic.org. And let me preface myself by saying I'm not making this up. Okay, I'm reading directly from the website. This is what it says.
Verbatim.
It says the European Olympic Committee is pleased to confirm that one application has been received from the NOC of Poland as a joint bid from the city of Krakow and the Małopolska region. One application. So Krakow won by default.
They didn't even want to. It's like somebody else volunteered.
And I think somebody in the local government is there's in shock and maybe terrified now that they thought they were competing against other cities. It would make Krakow look good to compete, and if they didn't win, that's okay. The benefit comes from having their name in the mix and getting attention. Well, guess what? Nobody else applied, so you win again by default, and now they have no idea what to do.
I have a possible kind of conspiracy theory here that perhaps Krakow didn't even apply, but someone came up with the idea. Well, we'll kind of lure Majchrowski over to Rome on some kind of pretext. In the meantime, we'll stuff one of these applications in the box, kind of like with various forged signatures on it, and then it'll be a kind of fait accompli, and before you know it, kind of there we go.
It's possible, like he kind of at a long boozy meeting, kind of got wool,
smoke-filled rooms,
amount of Roman wool pulled over his eyes. I'd like to talk about the broader trend that the IOC can't give away the Olympics anymore. It's fucking hilarious to me. Would you like to hear my plan? I'm going to solve all of world sports problems here in less than 2 minutes, okay? Switzerland. All the IOC, FIFA, they all have their headquarters there. Here's a simple solution. Have the Winter Olympics, the Summer Olympics, and the World Cup always in Switzerland, always. Let them fucking host it. They have all the facilities, all the mountains, all of the necessary equipment, and that would just settle this issue once and for all, and surely would be quite a boon to the old Swiss economy as well.
They need the help,
yeah, struggling little Switzerland.
But there you go. I'm sick of all this shit. Like, they're trying to give it away to Baku. Minsk is the next one. Minsk.
Happening right now. Nobody knows, but the European Olympics are happening in Minsk.
Oh, they started already.
Now.
Sorry, I didn't know that.
They finished on the 21st or 2nd.
Say it's an awesome event.
Yeah, well, the whole thing has created chaos here in the local government because one department doesn't know what to say, in response to media questions about, how this happened or what their plan
Where are the
is.
Olympics? Here, have some trees.
They're referring everybody to another government office who was referring people to a third government office, and it's also created tension between Krakow and Warsaw because Krakow suddenly is saying, "Yeah, Warsaw, you should help pay for this," and Warsaw's like, "Pay for what? What are you talking about?"
And by the way, just because it's the European Olympics with a smaller list of events, check the events. Krakow doesn't have any of these facilities. Like, it would be a monstrous construction project. Like, who the fuck is going to pay for all this?
Coming next, the Krakow Formula One Grand Prix.
We should be serious for a second and say Krakowians already have roundly rejected at a plebiscite the idea of it's not plebiscite the right word for
Referendum?
Referendum on
The Winter Olympics.
On the Winter Olympics, yeah.
That was like Gibawa's.
And that was like the real Olympics, like the proper Winter Olympics, not the Euro Olympics.
Like with a capital O for Olympics.
Yes, exactly. Well, we'll keep an eye on this.
Switzerland hosting everything would solve the problem of the Russians trying to invent a downhill track. The state of it, it wasn't even a real mountain, so go on.
Well, this is going to be a source of some interesting amusement, I think, for the next 4 years for us to see where this is going to go. Maybe Krakow's going to find a diplomatic way of backing out of it. They're just going to say, yeah, guys, we were just joking about that. We can't do this.
I'll tell you what.
Airport for that day.
We pledge here on the KrakCast, and trust me, this would not be our style generally. If this actually happens, we will be those volunteers that go around helping people.
Oh, we're going to get accredited for that for sure.
Volunteered me. It's like, what do you think I am, Krakow?
It's never going to happen.
Right. So keep your eye. And by the way, go to Eurolympics.org for the hilarious statement about the one application that was received to host the 2023
It's like Krakow actually looked itself up on Wikipedia and it turned out and didn't even know that, it's on there.
Let's bring things back locally here. if you were here, when did the pedestrian bridge from Kazimierz to Podgorze open
2010.
up? 2010. So if you were here in Krakow at that time, you know that was a pretty big deal, kind of facilitating the people movement between one neighborhood and the other. Was
Transfer of hipsters from Podgorze.
Well, that's true. But it really did a lot to kind of promote the growth of the area. I think it was Mostowa Street in Kazimierz.
It's done a lot for ramen sales on that side.
Whatever you call the place on the other side, I forgot what it's called. It's a good thing. It's a lovely bridge. It's nice. Well, on the back of
that area, Podgorze, just
nice. And on the back of that, the city announced recently that a similar pedestrian bridge has been green-lighted for the stretch of the river between Demniki and Salvatore. If you don't know the city quite well, it's going south. Yeah, that way, the south of the castle. What's the name of that bridge? The one where Alea crosses, right in the center of town, and the next bridge down. Who knows the name of that bridge down there by
Jubilat
by Tesk? Well, even further down, the one further down, furthest. Anyway, between we could really do with some details here, with some specifics. Yeah,
tremendously.
Anyway,
Thingy Bridge, next to the what's his name?
It's a good idea because if you look at the map of the city, there's not that much. It's hard to get around. But it seems to me that a regular road, car bridge would be more useful than a pedestrian bridge. I mean, as a pedestrian, do you really need to get back and forth between Salvatore and Demniki?
Well, if you have properties on the side.
I guess.
Well, once you can walk, maybe people will choose to walk. Who knows?
If you build it, they will come, something like that. At least when you look at the map between Podgorze and Kazimierz, it's obvious that people would, it was useful. Even though the Starowieczna Bridge and the Krakowska Bridge are, 150 meters in either direction, it's still needed because there's so many people there. But when I look at that part of the city, I just don't see it.
It's like you have to kind of go out of your way to take that bridge to go across to what's basically just a residential area.
Yeah, I've got to be honest, I've never walked along the river and thought they definitely need another pedestrian bridge here. But, it could be one of them things we didn't really think we needed the last one, and then it proves to be great.
Demniki kind of a pleasant kind of residential area, isn't it? It's kind of.
The thing is, a nice bridge there might be just nice as a visual background, but the city has actually basically said that this bridge is not supposed to be too visible. It's supposed to fit in with like the historical look of the city, so they actually don't want to build anything that might be architectural.
An invisible bridge be a slightly dangerous concept?
Pretty cool though.
Wait, wasn't that in what's it called, Indiana Jones?
Make it for scooters only.
Yeah, Josh, you and I have on the subject of the pedestrian bridge between Kazimierz and Podgorze, you and I have a mutual pet peeve connected with this bridge. It really burns us up.
One side of the bridge is designated for pedestrians,
very
the other
designated,
with a sign, depicting a silhouette of two humans standing position. The other side is
you designate what clearly designated is.
Quite clearly indicates that it is for cyclists. Now, as a cyclist, and I know John is as well, I really don't have any great issue with the occasional pedestrian using the cycling side of the bridge. However, as long as they're aware that they are in a cycling zone and they get the fuck out of the way when I'm on my bicycle. I mean, what I particularly do not like is lovelorn couples holding hands but yet maintaining a 1.5 metre distance between them as they
putting their lock up there somewhere.
Amble wistfully across.
I'd say a lot of tourists read about it as well. Oh, they love bridge with the locks, and they stroll down there and they're maybe on holiday.
My bell gets a lot of action, I can tell you.
So basically, if you're a pedestrian, keep on your own goddamn side of the bridge.
Yeah. Oh, well, what you'd also mention about this bridge to Salvatore and Demniki is the way the city is trying to find the company that actually built it. You're going to be able to apply for it online. You have to fill out all the formalities, and then the city, once they get all the propositions in, will have a 2-hour window where all these different propositions that are approved can auction off their services, but it'll be like a reverse auction. So whoever goes for the lowest prices will be the winner. That sounds like a great
2
idea.
hours sounds like plenty of time to for a decision to spend hundreds of millions of zlotys or whatever it is.
The murky world of public procurement here on the KrakCast. Exactly. But it's a tough area with all governments, and in Ireland we have this bizarre situation where, unlike say the UK and I'm guessing Poland as well, most Irish public bids aren't even declared afterwards. It's not public information who won the bid.
None of your business.
Might be your money, you might be using infrastructure, but it's none of your business.
Well, I look forward to the bridge in about 3 years or so, if all goes according to plan. Let's talk about mosquitoes. Can we talk about mosquitoes here? It's that time of the year. We had a lot of rain last month, and I don't know about you guys, but in my neighborhood, they are definitely out in full force. But the city this week announced that they have some other ideas when it comes to mosquito control.
Yeah, so mosquitoes are natural, and we should let them live, man. It's like nature's circle
Animal
of
cruelty
life,
or something.
What's this shit about bringing bats in to control them? If I see any bats, man, there's going to be some complaints, and it's going to be nothing to do with
Basically,
mozzies.
the city has said that they're not going to be spraying against mozzies, and they're going to allow natural methods, so bees.
Yeah, like
Machine guns.
Me smacking them on my arm. That's the natural method.
Which is funny because all the towns around Krakow have decided no, we're spraying because these are goddamn pests.
Okay, what's the justification for this?
Because it's not ecologically friendly to spray. So instead, we're going to allow people to get freaking malaria.
Well, malaria is not very friendly to us either, is it?
It's the most polluted city in Europe or whatever, so just blast us with some DDT and let us at least not all have lumps on
1 or
ourselves.
2 days of good spraying and the problem is solved for the rest of the season. But if you let the mosquitoes basically multiply, then, the mosquitoes don't live a long time. They reproduce, and, there are wet spots everywhere, so they keep reproducing. If you kill them off once, then the season is, pretty tame. But no, we had rains, so we have a lot of mosquitoes right now.
You find it odd that the same people who don't want trees in Plac Nowy are okay with letting mosquitoes live because it's natural?
I'm not sure about the position of the shopkeepers on Plac Nowy on that one, John.
No, I mean, come on, they're all for nature when it comes to letting mosquitoes live.
Yeah,
but
those
having some
evil
proper greenery.
shopkeepers.
Come on.
They're such hypocrites.
Well, if you get more mosquito bites than usual this year, it's because the good
There are
people in the
more
local
mosquitoes,
government have decided that the lives of mosquitoes are worth protecting, apparently, I guess, yeah?
Dude, it's so hot in here.
It is so hot in here. Speaking, it's super hot in here. It is.
We're 4 guys stuck in a little room with no ventilation, air conditioning.
Hey, people are still under the illusion that we record in a massive kind of industrial complex, with
our
state-of-the-art equipment.
Our Class A office space air conditioned stuff, not exactly. Speaking of air conditioning, speaking of being hot, Dave, let's go back to a subject that you ranted on last week on an episode we did about summertime. And after we published the episode, we found out something about the issue of air conditioning on buses.
Yeah, it turns out it wasn't just me giving out on and a loud chorus of complaints has led to a common sense approach, it seems, that they're because this is what the problem is. If the driver doesn't turn it on the minute he leaves the station, the first people to get on and, don't have air conditioning. And then already you're at risk of an open window, aren't you? So if you're going to turn it on, just turn it on. It's better to be looking at it than looking for it. People never complain about being too cool on a bus. It just never happens.
Never once.
Okay. They might in the office when they've to be
God,
there
it's
all
cold in
day
here.
for
Turn
8
that thing
hours.
off.
But never on a bus, man.
Never. No, never. So now I think the city government wants to empower drivers to turn it on anytime they see fit instead of following the regulations about, 28 degrees?
I mean, I think I
25 degrees,
suggested
78 or something, yeah.
public executions, but I don't think they're going that far. But yeah.
So maybe this will help your morning commute a little bit?
No, they're gonna. The idea now is, I hope, if it's over 20, that's because the new complaints are saying when it's 21, 22 on the thermometer when we're getting on these buses, it's roasting the minute you get on.
Exactly.
Like, you start
20 degrees is plenty with the body heat of all those people
just
in there.
turn it on when you're leaving in the summer. Okay,
And leave it
simple.
on. And leave it on.
Leave
Exactly.
it on
What's so
all
hard
day.
about that?
Yeah.
Very
You just
occasionally
put the
when you get on one of
prices
the
up,
new
keep us
trams,
cool.
like the tram 52, what do you call those? The Krakowiak, those really nice long trams.
ones, yeah.
Those are comfortable. But pretty much every other tram is just a sauna as well. And I think most of the buses are as well. Even those new electric buses are hot as well.
To be fair, when the air conditioning is turned on the new fleet of buses, it works really well. In my opinion.
When it's turned on.
I mostly get buses these days. The 22 is a mixed line. It's got a lot of old stock on it. But the newer Bombardier trains have good air conditioning as well when it's turned on. Like the 50, I get
Maybe
that
you got
quite
some sadistic drivers that just like to make you suffer.
Honestly, the big question for me is the cab air conditioning separate? Now, if it is, then that's why I think execution
is.
should be on the table
Yeah,
at least. Because if they're keeping themselves and their balls cool while they're doing this, excuse me, ladies, I don't mean to gender stereotype there, but I always associate sweaty drivers with men. It's just a thing.
Where are
we
you
do.
going with this?
If they are sitting there nice and cool,
And they don't care about you.
and they've got independent cab AC, then I got a huge issue with them as people. All right, if they're also sweating and they're for
As
some reason,
people.
if they're sweating it out with us and they're just not sure what the rules
Sharing
are,
the misery.
and their bosses haven't made this clear, then I'm with them. They
Well,
just
hold
need
on a minute,
clear
actually,
guidelines.
because I think that we might be able to, there's a theory to test here, whether there's a correlation with between the type of driver who has personal air conditioning in the cab, which he has on for himself, but deliberately leaves off the main air conditioning, and the type of bus driver who is at a stop and in his mirror can see an old lady breaking into a trot with heavy shopping bags to catch the bus, and just as she's approaching the door, he shuts them and drives off.
I think that's a bus driver's privilege now. Driving off, like if you miss your stop,
Bus
you miss your
driver's
stop.
privilege.
I mean, we have to give them a bit of leeway. Like it must be funny enough watching people run up to the door and not make it all day. I mean, I know after a few days on the job, I'd start to find that a little bit humorous.
Like you move the bus like 2 meters, then stop right away.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's going to happen. There'll be another one along soon enough. And as long as they all have their AC on, that little old lady be fine. She won't get too hot.
Moving on, we've got a new minimum wage coming into effect, I think, later this year. Guys, this comes on the heel of the previous rise was just a year and a half ago, something like that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with steadily, modestly rising minimum wage hikes as long as they're tied to productivity and, they're in line with inflation.
66% of the median wage is the idea, isn't it? If you increase that, then you actually start having job losses.
The new minimum wage, $24.50 a month, is that right?
Something about there, yeah. It's going to be about just a little over 200 zlotys more.
Which is not a lot of money, people, let's be honest about it.
This is before taxes.
Sorry,
These are people working a full-time job.
I can never remember. Is that brutto or netto?
It's going to be before taxes. Yeah,
Before taxes. So it's 24 after taxes would be like 18, 17?
You're going to basically, the price increase, the increase in income will be about 130 some zlotys if you're earning minimum wage. Mm-hmm. But what's hilarious, though, is like, PiS actually basically said, like, we'll bring in about 4 billion more in taxes this way. 2 billion more in taxes this way, but businesses will have to pay about 4.5 billion more to their workers if this minimum wage thing goes through, which it will go through. I think it has, actually. But nobody's realizing, like, well, maybe businesses won't be hiring more people, or maybe they'll let a few people go. So
economy is not for it. It'll be absolutely fine. It's only 2.2% inflation as well. So I don't think this is going to cause any.
No, but actually, in the article you linked, the what's called the Union of Employers. Basically, they suggested a slightly lower price, and they were basically saying, like, well, if you look at the increase in productivity that we're forecasting, it's about 3% plus inflation to some percent, then we should be increasing the minimum wage by about 6%. But this increase is more close to what, like about 8% or something like that?
But
so it's going a little faster than they suggest. Then the whole argument is, like, should there be a minimum wage whatsoever?
The Union for the employers now, it wouldn't really be doing their job very well if they didn't suggest a lower rate. So I think where they landed, I think where they landed is about right, and I don't think it'll have any adverse effects.
I know this election year has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Because, as always, the Polish economy is growing massively. Another year as the top boy in the class.
No, you can't deny that is definitely true. No.
Well, I learned recently that there's been a relaxation in how much use you pay if you're on lower earnings, which I think has massively increased, the numbers of people who are willing to become self-employed.
And it's the reason I think the government should just get a hold of the whole public pay issue as well, and just issue increases across the board, on a scaled plan over the next 10 years, because there's massive going to be wage growth needed in the public sector and in the private sector.
There are two stories about drivers here. One of our favorite subjects here, connected with transportation, of course. The first one, Dave, is about an idea that part of the problem we have with traffic here in Krakow is parents stopping in front of schools to drop off their kids and pick them up in the afternoon.
Obviously, I've never been a part of the dropping off kids ecosystem, so I'm using a kind of Dublin-based analogy here, where this drives my poor father, who's not a man prone to anger easily, nuts. Little Johnny, right up to the age of 16, being dropped off at every school in the city, which creates this huge traffic rush outside the schools in the middle of rush hour, because these are the 9 to 5 times basically, when people are knocking off and going to work, and it is a massive problem in all cities. What happened when I went to secondary school? It was like 8 miles away. I got the bus. I think it was 12.
Yeah, but for kids who are 8, 9 years old, they're too young to let them go on their own.
Sure, but
parents have no choice, right?
But strictly, after that stage, and also you can walk your child to school. Like if a lot of people live very close to the school, you don't have to get in your car and then moan about the fact it took 30 minutes when you could walk in 15. But look, I think just in general, it is an issue because it creates choke points in very busy places right at the wrong times.
My question is, like, do we really think that Polish people are going to listen to this rule? You know what they're going to do? They're still going to stop by the school.
Polish people love making rules, not so enthusiastic about following rules.
30 meters away, so all of a sudden the choke point will be the intersection.
Yeah, that's a good point.
An eye shot of the school anyway.
That's a good point. You know what? I'm sure there are exceptions. There are so many schools all over any big city, but don't most schools seem to be pretty conveniently situated to some public transport access point.
Yeah, and kids should be using it from about the age of 12. I honestly believe that it breeds independence. And plus, for the kids' point of view, it's much easier to skip school if your parents aren't dropping you off at the bloody door every day. We used to plan our day on the bus. That's how we decide which days we were going in or not.
And it facilitates bullying, so it has all the,
the classic elements. Unfortunately, Poland doesn't have the double-decker bus, which is being upstairs with all your mates on the way to school on a double-decker, getting aggressive older boys interactions, etc.
Well, I don't see this ban going anywhere, but somebody's idea, but it's not going to go anywhere. We'll see. The other story about driving, interesting statistics out this week about Polish drivers abroad, the rest of Europe, I should say. Now, this is an interesting subject because it's funny when you talk about drivers from other countries, it's always somebody else who's horrible drivers. We're okay as drivers, but those people over there, oh my God, they're horrible. Italian drivers have this reputation, but
says the man from Florida.
Very few people say that we are horrible drivers. It's always you are horrible drivers. So that's a good way to offend people. Anyway, just over 70,000 accidents caused by cars with Polish registration plates all over Europe last year. And what was the percentage again?
70,000.
It was over 70,000, and about 50%, 39,000 caused in Germany alone. Now, we did an episode last week.
Reparations.
We did an episode last week about reparations for Germany. I think having to hire that many policemen to hand up Polish drivers might be a kind of reparations. But anyway, different subject. Guys, what do we make of Polish drivers? Can we generalize and say that Polish drivers are deserving of this reputation for being a little problematic?
Well, like you say, you've just said to us that every person deep down loves to stereotype drivers from another country, and then you've gone and lobbed it up there for me, Dave.
Go ahead, hit it.
Have an L bang at it. Well, I have to say, I think Polish drivers drive too fast. Yeah, the end. At least 25 kilometers on average too fast on every road.
10-kilometer zone. I know, but I'll be honest. Like my impression was the opposite, especially when I first came to Poland, where we used to drive between Germany and Poland a lot. When you were in Poland on the highways, on the freeways, people would be going nuts. As soon as you drove into Germany, all of a sudden, all those Polish drivers would be in line with the law on the speed limit, except the Autobahn, where you could go 180, 200 kilometers an hour. But generally, all of a sudden, those same drivers could be a lot more disciplined. But it seems to have changed recently in the last few years, where they're undisciplined not only in Poland but also in Germany and internationally when they drive. But you also have to remember just the sheer amount of drivers. Poland every year
on the road,
and they're driving through all of Europe. And to get to the rest of Europe, you generally have to drive through Germany.
Of course. Poland has been one of the major markets for new cars for about a decade or more now. So yeah, more people on the road. And I think you're right, Dr. Mike. And I would say part of the reason, or one of the things that it maybe explains this bad behavior now versus say 20 years ago, not only the number of cars on the road, but the kind of cars on the road. Poles are no longer driving Maui Fiats and little Daewoo's. They're driving Audis and BMWs. They're driving nicer cars with bigger engines that can go faster. And Poles love to go, like Dave says, a little too fast. I think that's the problem.
They do keep the cars well maintained in general, though, and change their tires and buy better models. Which is a good thing, by the way, John, for road safety in general. As that filters through over the next 10 years,
the speed factor
new
is
stock.
what I mean.
That's what gets me. I honestly think A, with the higher speed limits, and B, just the overtaking culture. Poland is thousands of miles of B road, what we call B roads, and people will regularly drive 100 k's if they think they know a B road. But these are split second maneuvers. I mean, if you're overtaking at that speed and you get it even slightly wrong, you're into a head-on collision, and they never end well.
If you drive on the autostrada here from time to time, you'll see that Poland doesn't have a really well developed, as you say, overtaking, passing culture. Kind of intuitively understanding when you should back off a little bit, let things work out in front of you, and then speed forward. No, instead, most people here are constantly right on your ass the entire time, flashing their lights, saying, get over now, where all they have to do is wait 10 seconds till you pass the guy you're passing, and then everybody wins. But
if you're on holiday here in the fast lane, people, put your shoe on it and get out of that fucking lane as soon as possible.
You're in the passing lane, you're going 190, and there's a guy right on your ass, flashing lights. Why are you slowing down,
That's
man?
right.
The speeds, exactly right. I've driven up to Poznan and Warsaw a few times, and the speeds I saw guys overtake me at was just incredible.
Yeah, it's dangerous. So that kind of, I think it goes a long way towards explaining these 70,000 accidents.
We think we covered this before, but Poland's on its way to having a world-class road network, but there's large chunks of it that aren't quite connected up there, and that's where you meet these kind of what I would call a B road, kind of connecting up large chunks which are amazing, like 6-lane highways, so EU funding on the old road side is going to plan. Give it another decade and you won't know it.
And speaking of bad drivers, maybe the worst driver, maybe best driver, I don't know, it depends on how you see it. Let's finish this week with news of a guy in a small town called Piękno, I think it was, middle part of the country, who, well, Dave, tell people what he was driving.
A 49-year-old man, excuse me, scratch that, a 49-year-old legend,
Bloody legend.
got wasted and stole a T-55 tank and drove it right through the centre of town and woke up the next day not knowing what the fuck was going on. That's the best story ever. It might not happen that way, but that's how I choose to have read
Here's
it.
my favorite.
Woke up in a drunk tank.
Let me just get this in
drunk
really
in a
quickly.
tank,
Here's my favorite line from the news story you saw about this. Police officers sent to the scene found a T-55 tank parked on the street. There's something you don't see every day. What goes unquestioned though is where do you get a tank? Where do you steal a tank from?
Well, apparently they were transporting it, and
Don't sprinkle too much reality on this now, right? If this is boring, leave it out.
Yeah, preserve the legendary status.
transporting it. It was being repaired. They just, had a few beers and thought it might be
Are tanks that easy to start up
So they were involved in
and steal
transport
and drive?
They had access to it. It's not like they broke into a military
that
base.
dilutes the killness somewhat. I mean, I was picturing them spilling out of a bar and then suddenly kind of coming across a tank and going, you know what we should do, lads.
And as it happened, one of them knew how to outwit the immobiliser system, on which every modern and not so modern tank is equipped with.
Imagine a tank going beep beep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how does you just don't stick a key in there and turn it? I'm sure there's a pretty complicated process
Yeah, well,
for
they were
firing
obviously
up a
kind
tank.
of tank mechanics or something. Like they knew what they were doing, right?
Yeah,
I think there's a hatch in the top behind the gun. You lift that up, and then you can, you go down a short ladder, and then you're basically
It
inside
can't be
it.
too complicated. Remember, these are usually like kids out
true.
of high school who are being
That's
taught how
true.
to drive these things.
And this guy was wasted. He had no problem with it, so it must
Actually, I
be
do
pretty
know a
straightforward.
little bit about driving tanks, which is that basically you've got two motors, one for each side, and the way you steer is you just simply stop one of the motors and push one of the others, and then.
Well, Germany should be thankful that this guy didn't get on the road and head west.
Getting my revenge.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Hey, before we go, we want to give a quick shout out to somebody who was nice enough to send us a very nice message a couple of weeks ago. We were supposed to say thanks
As opposed
last
to the
week.
large numbers who send us offensive messages. all
Oh,
the
that
time.
happens too. Michaela from Italy. She was an Erasmus student here in Krakow for the last year. And she sent us a really nice message saying that she's listened to us regularly for all the news about Krakow and Poland and whatnot. And she's back in Italy now, and so she's going to continue listening. So thank you very much for your message, Michaela. We appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody listening. Thanks again. Give us a like, click, share, and all the usual stuff. And we'll see you next time on the KrakCast News.